So I just let everybody know we are recording. And tonight I'd like to introduce two of our reading specialists that will be presenting dyslexia awareness information. We have Candace Eubanks, if you'll wave Candace. She works with not only our secondary students, but also helps at elementary as our reading specialist in dyslexia. And then we have Betsy Rosiski, wave Betsy, who is back with us in the dyslexia program and working with lots of elementary kiddos. So I'm going to let the ladies take it away. I think Ms. Rosiski, you're going to start, so take it away.
Hi, everybody, and thank you for coming. We appreciate your presence, and we're excited to share about dyslexia. I think between Candace and I, we have probably close to 45 years, maybe a little bit over, of combined experience. A little bit about myself. I've been teaching about 25 years, and I've been at West Elementary School, fortunately, for 22 years. So I am beginning my fourth year in dyslexia. So it's great to be able to come back. One thing that I want to share is our kids, they come to the cottage and we get them from their classrooms. And I have about 8 groups that I work with. Usually our groups are about, they do not exceed 6 kids. I want to say about 4 to 5 is the norm of what we have. And so it's great practice to work with a dyslexia specialist. And so we do work with kids in a program, the Orton-Gillingham program, and it makes the multisensory teaching approach, which we are very, very lucky to be in West ISD, that they have invested in this great dyslexia program. And so not only do Candace and I work with kids, we also test kids on Fridays. And so it's magnificent. We are dyslexia specialists. We have had intensive training from one of the dyslexia gurus. And so we're very thankful that we are knowledgeable about dyslexia. We are also very knowledgeable about testing and the training that we have received, and we know what to look for. And so I am going to pass it on to Candace.
Hi, I'm Candace Eubanks, and like Ms. Adams said in the beginning, I am able to work with kids between the high school all the way ranging to the elementary school in small groups. This is my 22nd year in education, 15 of those here at West, and this is my 6th year in the dyslexia program here at West ISD. We know you guys may have questions throughout this presentation, so please add those into the chat, and we are going to make time at the end to go back and answer any questions you guys may have. So I'm kind of a newbie at this. I'm going to share my screen with you, and we want to start with a short video. So let me get that pulled up for you. And
take a moment to read the following. How was that? Frustrating? Slow? What were those sentences about? They're actually a simulation of the experience of dyslexia, designed to make you decode each word. Those with dyslexia experience that laborious pace every time they read. When most people think of dyslexia, they think of seeing letters and words backwards, like seeing B as D and vice versa, or they might think people with dyslexia see saw as was. The truth is, people with dyslexia see things the same way as everyone else. Dyslexia is caused by a phonological processing problem, meaning people affected by it have trouble not with seeing language, but with manipulating it. For example, if you heard the word cat and then someone asked you, remove the C, what word would you have left? At. This can be difficult for those with dyslexia. Given a word in isolation like fantastic, students with dyslexia need to break the word into parts to read it. Fan-tas-tic. Time spent decoding makes it hard to keep up with peers and gain sufficient comprehension. Spelling words phonetically like STIK for stick and FRENS for friends is also common. These difficulties are more widespread and varied than commonly imagined. Dyslexia affects up to 1 in 5 people. It occurs on a continuum. One person might have mild dyslexia, while the next person has a profound case of it. Dyslexia also runs in families. It's common to see one family member who has trouble spelling, while another family member has severe difficulty decoding even one-syllable words like catch. The continuum and distribution of dyslexia suggest a broader principle to bear in mind as we look at how the brains of those with dyslexia process language. Neurodiversity is the idea that because all our brains show differences in structure and function, we shouldn't be so quick to label every deviation from the norm as a pathological disorder, or dismiss people living with these variations as defective. People with neurobiological variations like dyslexia, including such creative and inventive individuals as Picasso, Muhammad Ali, Whoopi Goldberg, Steven Spielberg, and Cher, clearly have every capacity to be brilliant and successful in life. So here's the special way the brains of those with dyslexia work. The brain is divided into 2 hemispheres. The left hemisphere is generally in charge of language and ultimately reading, while the right typically handles spatial activities. fMRI studies have found that the brains of those with dyslexia rely more on the right hemisphere and frontal lobe than the brains of those without it. This means when they read a word, it takes a longer trip through their brain and can get delayed in the frontal lobe. Because of this neurobiological glitch, they read with more difficulty. But those with dyslexia can physically change their brain and improve their reading. With an intensive multisensory intervention that breaks the language down and teaches the reader to decode based on syllable types and spelling rules, the brains of those with dyslexia begin using the left hemisphere more efficiently while reading, and their reading improves. The intervention works because it locates dyslexia appropriately as a functional variation in the brain, which naturally shows all sorts of variations from one person to another. Neurodiversity emphasizes this spectrum of brain function in all humans and suggests that to better understand the perspectives of those around us, we should try to not only see the world through their eyes, but understand it through their brains.
We felt that would be a good introduction because a lot of times there can be misconceptions about what dyslexia is and isn't. We wanted to share with you guys a great resource that you can actually find on our webpage. If you go into the West ISD webpage, you can search for dyslexia, and it will pull up our dyslexia programs, and you can actually get to our dyslexia handbook. It will look like this. And we're not going to read this word for word or go through it, but this is a great resource if you have questions or wondering about certain things and how they work. But there are a few things that we would like to highlight from the handbook online. The first thing that we would like to share with you guys is just the definition of what dyslexia is. So it says dyslexia is a specific learning disability that is neurobiological in origin. It's characterized by difficulties with accurate and or fluent word recognition and by poor spelling and decoding abilities. This typically results from the phonological component of language that is unexpected in relation to other cognitive abilities and the provision of effective classroom instruction. Secondary consequences to students with dyslexia can include problems in reading comprehension and reduced reading experience that can impede the growth of their vocabulary and background knowledge. So to kind of break that down, neurobiological is meaning that you're born with it. There is a weakness in spelling and decoding, and when it says a deficit from the phonological component, like you saw in the video, that is kind of the piece when they're younger, being able to manipulate the words and the sounds. And when they're not reading, then they're not going to be exposed to as much vocabulary and background knowledge as their peers. Cognitive abilities just means they have the ability to learn, and they've been at school, they're here every day, they're giving it their best. So if we look a little bit further down, right in this section, you can see that there are 4 primary characteristics for the reading and spelling characteristics of dyslexia, which includes reading words in isolation, which is typically a lot harder for the dyslexic student because they don't have any context clues to figure out what the words are. They're having to rely on their decoding, accurately decoding unfamiliar words, difficulty with oral reading. It could be slow, inaccurate, or labored. And even with your older students, 5th grade, middle school on up, sometimes they'll read so quickly and they're just stumbling and mumbling over words they may not know to try to get through it. And also the difficulty with the spelling.
Miss Eubanks, if you could reshare that dyslexia, we're seeing the website, but if you could share that actual document, you might just want to stop sharing and then reshare when it's just on the document so you can show them where you want them.
So do you think if I just pull stop sharing and pull up the Word, will it show the Word document?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so let me try that real quick. Sorry about that. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry about that. I am a newbie.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I've attended many Zoom meetings, but this is my first presentation. So I was just at the beginning of the handbook. I don't know if you got to see what it looks like earlier, but it looks like this. It's for our school district. And I was just scrolling down just like to the very first page. I think it's like page 2. And so we went through the definition and the 4 main the 4 primary reading and spelling characteristics of dyslexia. I wanted to highlight one more thing, and I'm going to hand it over to Ms. Rosiski right here at the top of the very next page. These are characteristics that are most often associated with those 4 reading and spelling characteristics. In younger kids, you're going to see a lot of segmenting, blending, and manipulating sounds in words. They have difficulty there. Sometimes they have trouble learning the names of letters and their sounds that they make. In their memory, it's hard for them to hold all that information about the sounds and words. So they'll have a weakness maybe recalling the letters and their sounds. When it says rapidly recalling the names of familiar objects, colors, or letters of the alphabet, one thing that we do with our kids is we'll show them colors, letters, and have them name them as quickly as they can. You can do that with numbers as well. And then we kind of already talked about other consequences of dyslexia can be that trouble with the vocabulary and reading comprehension and also the written language. So I am going to stop sharing, and Ms. Rosiski is going to focus on a couple of things before we move on.
Okay, if you'll move it to page 5, Ms. Eubanks. Okay, so how is that dyslexia diagnosed? First, we do know that we haven't been in school for 6 months, and so to make it clear, we do test formally for dyslexia. And we also screen for dyslexia. Our school, the state of Texas mandates that we screen students from kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade. So to make it clear, screening is a process that we do where we get diagnostics from testing, or rather a computer test that they do. We look at the data from it, and then we take it from there. And then kindergarten is a little bit different at the end of the year. But to put your mind at ease, we are doing screening for 1st grade and 2nd grade by January 31st. And from there on, when we have concerns, we will contact you. But a lot of times we do not have concerns. So when we're looking at a student for dyslexia, we do consider how much reading intervention have they had? Another thing that I love about West ISD is that we've invested in a reading program by Fountas and Pinnell. And it's wonderful because kids can get great intervention in their classroom with their teachers. And we also do have a reading intervention specialist who also works with kids who pull out. And so we want to give great intervention. And then when we see, okay, that intervention, there's something more that we can do for that child, then that's when hopefully we can start working with the kid and see if there's another way to help them. And so for children, we do an evaluation and formally diagnose dyslexia. And we give a series of formal tests. And we not only look for the negative, we look for the positive too. And so we look for things like their reading, their phonemic awareness. We look at their their memory. We look at spelling. We look at their writing. We get a lot of qualitative data, which Candace and I pride ourselves in. We interview parents, we interview teachers, we interview past teachers. We collect work samples as well to come up with a good way to help that child. And so then, Candace, you go to page 6. What are the signs in dyslexia? I think you probably saw in the video. It is a myth that dyslexia individuals read backwards, although spelling can be quite jumbled at times because students have trouble remembering letter symbols for sounds and forming memories for words. And I have to say what I love about our program is that the kids bring it back every day. Every day they bring that memory, and it's so awesome because they'll learn every phonics rule that there is, such as like in that video, you'll understand why a word like lock is spelled with CK and look is spelled with K. And so kids also are able to learn to write in cursive, and that reduces making letters backwards. And so when you really think about it, it's very logical that how our natural ability is to scribble. And so cursive is something very fantastic. Kids in second grade are introduced to cursive and they continue through that. In our program, they'll learn cursive pretty quickly. But other signs of dyslexia is learning to speak. Those are things that you look for. You look for how they learned their letters and sounds. If it was difficult for them to pick up, such as when they were in kindergarten, first grade, memorizing number facts, reading quickly enough to comprehend, and spelling. Those are just some of the things that we look for. A misconception that people have about dyslexia is that it is a lifelong condition. It is something that you do not get rid of. It is something that you do cope with and that you get better with. A lot of people actually cope with it a long time before they find out that they are dyslexic. One thing that I learned really cool was there are doctors that are dyslexic that didn't find out that they were dyslexic until they were in medical school because they couldn't grasp that medical terminology. People are very smart and they are people with dyslexia. And so it is important for these individuals to be taught a systematic and explicit method that involves several senses such as hearing, seeing, touching at the same time. And so that's going back to our Orton-Gillingham MTA program. So it's a fantastic program that where you do use your senses to grasp everything that you need for dyslexia. So on, I did want to go over page 10, Candace, where it says, depending on the child's age and stage of reading development, the following areas related to reading are assessed by the Dyslexia Test Administrator. And I think I went over that really quick. I'll go over it again really quick, where it's reading single words in isolation. And a lot of that, we call that non-words. And there's some that are like irregular words or sight words. Phonological awareness, letter knowledge, rapid naming of words, and also we do letters and numbers, especially when they're above 6 years old. And it's amazing how different, you know, you're looking for, again, not only weaknesses, but also strengths. And I like to do this part of the test because you have kids that love math and science and they hate reading. And so when they do that letter rapid and they do that number rapid, sometimes it's the same amount and sometimes there's a 10-second difference, which I find that as amazing. We do check their reading fluency and accuracy and their comprehension and also their written spelling.
Okay, so the last thing we wanted to talk with you guys about from the handbook is just, so if a student qualifies for dyslexia and they're treated through a program, what kind of happens? A lot of times parents think when they're through with the program, they're through with dyslexia and they're just kind of dropped from everything, and that's not true. So there is a little brief statement about the monitoring. So we monitor all students, whether they're in a program or they've exited a program. If they've moved in, it does not matter. Any student that has been identified with dyslexia in our district all the way through graduation. So what that means is we're looking at their grades, we're looking at district assessments, as well as benchmarks. And results are reported during 504s and ARD meetings when we meet together. If we have concerns on our end before that, we definitely, I know with the older students, I like to go address it with them first before and give them a chance to make up any grades or find out what's going on, and then definitely getting parents and teachers involved when we need to. And it's also important that the older students and know what their accommodations are, so they're using them and getting what they need. And depending on where your child's at, if they're in high school and getting ready to graduate, they can even get help at the college level. Every college has a disability services office that you can contact, and usually your student has to do it by this point because they're 18 years and older. But if you have any questions about when they're there at that level, please let me know and I'll be happy to help you any way I can. Like I said, this is a great resource that you can find on our website, and it's here for you, all the information that we just talked about. I think now, Ms. Rosiski, I'm gonna stop sharing, and you were going to share some good apps for students with dyslexia.
Yes. Okay, so some of us have had 504 meetings already, and we've had some ARD meetings this year, and I don't think I meant to do this one again. Okay. Hold on. Okay, so what I like about this is actually I got this from Twitter. So Twitter is a great resource to look for things for dyslexia, but this does have the 10 best apps for kids with dyslexia. And so there's quite a few that actually have some free trials. There's one that there was a monkey one that I looked at that I really liked that had a video on it. You just want to play around. But those of you who have already had a meeting, I did send this to you. Also, we did a app called Nessie. And so we did this when it was COVID, and for the students in dyslexia, there was a free trial. And so you can see in the corner here, Nessie reading, spelling free trial. They did it for us for 30 days for some of the kids. So that's great practice. And so I love how when parents say, what can we do with our kids? And so every day your child comes home with a paper that was our reading practice, and it may have had spelling practice. And what's really cool is that we code the words. And so you can ask, what's underlined? What does that mean? What's that little arc that you made? Why did you do a curve on the bottom of those letters in the words? And so that's great reinforcement for your child. Also, a big thing for anyone in reading really is, and for a student in dyslexia, is dictionary skills. And we do touch that also in dyslexia, and it is taught in the general ed classroom as well. But it's great practice. And because students struggle a little bit and maybe their fluency is not as fast in reading, and so dictionary skills is a great thing that you can do at home to reinforce. And I think that's kind of it. Are there any questions?
Betsy, can you talk a little bit about, there was a question about, it says testing by January for first graders, but it's actually screening that we're doing. Could you talk about maybe the screening that's going to happen for first grade, second grade, and kindergartners this year?
Oh, yes. Okay. So we, again, West ISD has invested in a computer program called iReady, and we are no longer doing iStation. So iReady is fantastic because students have been testing in reading and math, and we call it diagnostics. And so we're able to see things such as their phonological awareness, also their phonics. We're able to look at their vocabulary and their reading comprehension, okay? And so from that information in first grade and second grade, we, Miss Eubanks and I will look at those diagnostics, and we're waiting until possibly November, December to pull those diagnostics, that diagnostic information. Our deadline is January 31st. And so we want to make sure that the kids are back in school and they've had some good teaching and learning before we accumulate that information. So from that screening, we will look at the information, talk to the teachers, look for strengths and weaknesses. And then if we have serious concerns, we will contact parents and possibly test. And so we'll see what happens from that. If you do not hear from us from our screening, then there's not a serious worry. Would you say that's about right, Ms. Eubanks?
Yes. If we have a concern about any student, whether we think they need intervention or are struggling with any part of reading, we'll definitely reach out to you. And there's a letter that we will send home with your child for it. But I don't see any other questions in the chat right now. But we'll give you guys a few minutes. Does anyone else have a question that we can address right now?
One thing I do want to say from my experience teaching in fifth grade, going back to dictionary skills, it's great practice to look at those unit reading tests. A lot of kids do struggle with vocabulary. And so not only in the text that's in the story, but also in the questions and your answer choices. So parents out there, when you're looking at the test questions that your child might have missed, really go through it with them and talk about their thinking and why they chose that answer. I know that they are taught content in their classroom, and one of the things is to get a dictionary out and make sure they understand what the question is asking and what their answer choices are. For example, one of mine was I think an answer choice was anxiety. And so the kids would not pick that because they didn't want to get a dictionary and look it up. And so dictionary skills is a big deal.
Ladies, y'all done a great job. I'm going to share your contact info, your email name and your email address if anyone would like to contact you in that way. If you have anything else you'd like to share, we appreciate you guys sharing knowledge tonight.
No, just please contact us if you have any questions. If you're like me, might not want to share in a chat, please contact us directly. We're happy to talk to you about any concerns that you might have. So,
And I'll be happy to send out those links to you. That's wonderful. All right, are we ready to go? Thank y'all for coming.
Thanks so much. I'm typing Ms. Rosiski's email in right now. And if anybody has any more questions, please jump in, let us know. If not, we're going to wait just a minute so I can get this contact information in here and then say goodnight. Please join us again at 7 for our next presentation by Dr. Susan Pantel on suicide awareness and depression in COVID times. And we'll be moving over to that Zoom and starting that one at 7. But here, I think I've got that all correct. Candace and Betsy, did I get that?
Yes.
I was doing it while I was talking. So, but I appreciate, we had 26 people on for our Parent Academy. As Mr. Tritt mentioned earlier, that is wonderful. We're so glad, and we'll continue to offer these by Zoom and by recording because we think that's a great way to reach out and let you participate from home. So a big thank you again to all our faculty and staff that are on, to Mr. Tritt for joining, to Candace and Betsy. We appreciate you very much and for offering your knowledge tonight and reaching out and helping our parents to understand your program a little better. Thank you so much again, and we'll see you guys at 7. Bye-bye.
I accidentally got out.
You're good, Betsy. I still see you.
Oh, I need to get out.
Yeah. hit end at the bottom.
Leave meeting.